Hey everyone, welcome back to Crypto Cash. Thank you so much for joining me here. Hope you're having a great day. Let's take another look here at Bitcoin, see where we're at. It's an interesting situation here. We ran up to 105K yesterday. Now we're slightly bleeding out, and most altcoins are hemorrhaging at this point. So it does make sense that Bitcoin dominance is going to start to stabilize, as we can kind of see here. We are starting to see a green day here for Bitcoin dominance, and if that happens, keep in mind when Bitcoin dominance goes up, altcoins typically go down. It's just a standard rinse and repeat there. Keep in mind, this is more like the effect, not the cause here. Bitcoin dominance isn't going up per se. It's just a reflection of how alts are performing versus Bitcoin. But the context here is that we should expect the price to go down. It all depends on liquidation delta and the overall sentiment there. But at this point, it does look like we're going to start seeing that shift momentum, quite possibly at that 97K range. So maybe considering some short positions here, but I don't want to be a late short either. It's kind of interesting the way the market is. It's really faking a lot of people out. And right now, sometimes, when we have these kind of situations, the best trade can oftentimes be no trade, right? So we get a lot of conflicting information that we're just going to hang out on the sidelines and wait for the best opportunity. Because at this point, it does feel like we're going to go up, but it also getting this weird sneaky vibe here that we're going to pull back too. So let's take a look. First and foremost, hit the like button, comment below if you get a chance. Let me know what your position is on Bitcoin. And if we look here, we can see 106 to 108 is that heavy concentration here locally of liquidation. Okay, so each one of these bars is about $1 to $2 billion. So there's a good chunk of change up there, probably 10, 20. Somewhere probably closer to about 20 billion liquidation between 106 and 108. And we look at the macro here, we can see it's a much heavier concentration there. Yeah, see each one of these bars is about 5 billion. So we are looking probably actually more like 20 to 25 billion if you add them upwards of about 108,000. So there is more momentum. Let me rephrase. There's more consideration for the price to go higher based on manipulation, because whales know that people are shorting right now and they're more likely to push the price action higher towards that level. That's kind of how it works. Wouldn't be surprised if liquidation delta is still bearish, which it is. We were right here at about between 8 and 6 billion in liquidation short delta. So way more people shorting than taking longs right now. So again, another reason why there's a good chance we may see a pump here, which is why we saw the push to 105K, but short still held. So if we do push up higher to 105K, folks, there's going to be a massive short squeeze. We're probably going to run towards that 106 to 108K range. Once more, the sentiment here is bearish, so it's usually best not to try to take a long into this, though. As tempting as it is to want to, long at this point, and the likelihood of the price going up is still there. We have good momentum. Overall, the sentiment is still good. But I want you to know that the odds are against you if you're taking a long right now, just based on statistical data here so far. Open interest doesn't tell us a whole heck of a lot. It's really just kind of implying that we got pretty big gap between here and 100,000. So if the price were to pull back, we lose this 103K range. There's a solid chance 100 to 95K would be the next rough estimate for a target area. And if you saw my YouTube short from yesterday, or just in general, I have shorts on Twitter, Telegram, Discord, and TikTok now. You'll recognize that 97,000 is that heavy area of confluence. We can see there's a point of control, the macro point of control. If we zoom out, at least I believe we still have that 97K range. That's the most amount of volume we've seen in this range, right? And then we also got our 0.618 fib level, that lower fair value gap area. So, solid consideration for that to happen. So just bear that in mind. If that does occur, a lot of alts are going to get hit pretty hard here. So just something to be mindful of. All that said, though, at this point on the daily time frame, when we look at this here, we do have a bullish type of structure. It's funny, we got a bearish type of pattern here, then it turns bullish, and then it turns bearish. It's like, can't quite figure out what it wants to do. And that's what happens when you get stuck in a range. We got this tight range here between 103 and approximately 105K. And until we break above or below, we got to presume it's going to continue. That's really how it works. No matter how many patterns you draw out, that doesn't really mean too much. Okay, so please understand that. I draw these patterns out to give people representations of the overall sentiment, but I can tell you at this point, just because this is a bullish type of pendant pattern on the daily does not mean it's going to happen. All right, but I still think that it should, because, well, we have a lot of good signs here. Our money flow index is still high. Even though stochastic is swinging down, that's pretty common in these areas here. We can see our RSI is hanging out there right next to our moving average. These are, can be viewed as divergences, of course. And if you look at our weekly time frame, we are struggling to close above our weekly high close at 104.5. So getting above 104.5 this week would be phenomenal. That would truly probably, in most ways, break bullish here. But at this point, there's a lot of selling pressure in that 104 to 105K range. All that being said, what's the 4-hour time frame tell us here? This is that transitionary time frame. we want to look here and recognize that we are maintaining above 50, but kind of hanging out close to it. So it's not really a great sign when you see this, but it's not bad either. It's good. We're on the right side of the tracks, but we're kind of barely hanging out there. The thing I don't love is money flow index is pulling back here, but as MFI pulls back, it's actually a good sign in a lot of ways because it does imply there's going to be some buying pressure soon, and we're just kind of like the calm before the storm right now. MACD is trying to converge, but hasn't yet, so this kind of speaks to that divergence we have on the liquidation delta. But the overall sentiment here in the 4 hours kind of indifferent, and when you see indifferences, you don't see any confirmations like, hey, we're going either direction. It's generally best to avoid trading. Ichimoku Cloud on the hourly also confirming we're still above, but everything else is kind of messy. Though the truth is right now, it's just not a good condition to trade, right? So we have good propensity for the price to continue breaking a higher. So, because if you do look at some of these patterns here, again, this is just patterns. These don't mean too much, but the overall sense here is that we are, once again, working ourselves into a bullish type of rectangle pattern, depending on what time frame you look at, right? So we have some outliers, of course, but for the most part, we're working ourselves into a channel. See, basically 102 to 105K if you take that lower candle, that lower wick down to the 100,000 mark. So, and again, where we're at right now, not optimal trading conditions. Better off waiting for a nicer trading conditions. Like what I'm looking for validations is to see 105K or higher. That would tell me that we're in better shape here to see a move up, but that could also be a fake out, right? So honestly, right now, I just don't like what I see, and I'm not going to recommend taking a trade in either direction at this point. I would recommend hanging out on the sidelines and waiting it out, and maybe at this point considering some short trades just based on the fact that it's more likely for altcoins to knee-jerk reaction down at this point based on how Bitcoin's performing versus all Bitcoin dominance. So that whole spectrum there is favoring short positions for altcoins. So if you're gonna do anything, consider a short for an altcoin, I guess is the concept there. Either way, I don't recommend trading any way you look at it. Sorry, hope I didn't waste your time, but these are just general things you want to look for. These are important things to recognize when you are trading, because good traders are going to be the ones kind of waiting for better opportunities when there are them, right? I don't see a lot of good opportunities here. We have too much conflict and just not enough return on investment potential. Okay, all right. Hope that makes sense. Thanks again. Join me over on Twitter, Telegram, and Discord. We got a lot of new community members coming over there. It's been a lot of fun. We got a good trade setup there too. It's pretty fantastic. All right. Thanks again for your time. We'll see you in the next one. Take care.